Chapter 15: Campaigns and Elections. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we turn to campaigns and elections, the lifeblood of democracy. If public opinion is the heartbeat, then elections are the mechanism that translates that opinion into political power. Campaigns and elections determine not just who governs, but how citizens connect with the political process. Why elections matter. Elections are about more than simply counting votes. They are the foundation of democratic life, serving multiple vital purposes that keep governments both responsive and legitimate. Legitimacy. At the most basic level, elections grant governments their authority. When leaders are chosen through a transparent process that reflects the will of the people, citizens are more likely to accept the outcomes, even if their preferred candidate or party does not win. This legitimacy is what distinguishes democracy from authoritarian rule, where power is seized rather than granted. Accountability. Elections give citizens the power to hold leaders responsible. At the ballot box, voters can reward effective leadership with re-election or remove those who fail to meet expectations. This accountability mechanism pressures leaders to govern responsibly, knowing that their actions will be judged at regular intervals. Representation. A democracy must reflect the diversity of its people. Elections provide a pathway for different communities, interests, and perspectives to influence policymaking. By electing representatives, citizens ensure that decisions in government take into account the wide range of voices that make up society. Participation. Perhaps most importantly, elections are the most direct and widespread opportunity for citizens to engage in politics. Beyond protests, petitions, or lobbying, voting is the action available to virtually every adult citizen. It transforms private preferences into collective outcomes, making participation both a right and a civic duty. Safeguarding democracy. Without regular, free, and fair elections, democracy cannot function. They are the mechanism by which power is peacefully transferred, disputes are resolved, and citizens renew their connection to government. Elections help prevent political violence, foster stability, and remind leaders that their power comes only with the consent of the governed. In short, elections are not merely events. They are ongoing democratic practices that uphold the values of legitimacy, accountability, representation, and participation. They ensure that democracy is not just an idea, but a living, functioning system. The American electoral system. The United States has a distinctive electoral system that reflects both democratic ideals and the constitutional framework designed by the founders. It combines features meant to empower citizens with mechanisms intended to balance popular will against stability, federalism, and institutional checks. Several core components define how elections work in America: single-member districts and first-past-the-post. Most elections in the U.S. use single-member districts, where voters select one representative for their district. The candidate who receives the most votes, even if it is not a majority, wins the seat. This first-past-the-post system tends to favor large, broad-based political parties because smaller parties rarely gain enough concentrated support to win. Over time, this has reinforced the dominance of two major parties, making the U.S. one of the strongest examples of a two-party system in the world. While this system provides clear winners and stable governments, critics argue that it limits voter choice and discourages third-party or independent candidates. The Electoral College. Presidential elections in the U.S. are not decided by a direct national popular vote, but by the Electoral College. Each state is allocated a number of electors equal to its representation in Congress, senators plus representatives. Most states award their electors on a winner-take-all basis, meaning the candidate who wins the popular vote in a state receives all its electoral votes. This design magnifies the importance of swing states, competitive states where outcomes are uncertain, and reduces the influence of states with predictable partisan leanings. In rare but significant instances, the Electoral College has produced outcomes where the candidate who won the national popular vote did not become president, as in the elections of 2000 and 2016. Supporters argue the system protects federalism by giving states a role, while critics see it as undemocratic and outdated. Primary elections and caucuses. Another unique feature of the American system is the use of primary elections and caucuses to select party nominees. In many democracies, party leaders or party conventions play a decisive role in choosing candidates. In contrast, U.S. voters themselves often determine who will appear on the general election ballot. Primaries can be open, allowing any registered voter to participate, closed, restricted to registered party members, or semi-open depending on state rules. Caucuses, though less common today, involve local meetings where party members gather to discuss and vote on their preferred candidate. This system increases voter participation in the nomination process, but can also extend campaigns, raise costs, and increase polarization by encouraging candidates to appeal to their party's base before the general election. A blended system. Together, these elements show how the American electoral system blends popular democracy with institutional safeguards. Single-member districts encourage strong parties, the Electoral College ensures federal balance, and primaries give voters a direct say in nominations. The result is a system that is uniquely American, one that fosters both citizen participation and ongoing debates about fairness, representation, and reform. Campaigns and strategy. Modern political campaigns in the United States are highly professionalized, resembling large-scale businesses or military operations in their complexity. Winning office requires careful coordination of messaging, fundraising, voter outreach, and media use. Each piece plays a critical role in shaping the outcome of elections, crafting a message. At the heart of every campaign is the candidate's message, a simple, memorable theme that resonates with voters' hopes, fears, or identities. Slogans like Hope and Change, Barack Obama 2008, or Make America Great Again, Donald Trump 2016, are more than catchphrases. They frame how voters view the election itself, set the tone for policy discussions, and provide a rallying cry for supporters. Effective messaging connects abstract political ideas to everyday concerns, giving voters a reason to identify personally with a candidate. Fundraising and campaign finance. Money fuels campaigns. Candidates must raise substantial funds to cover advertising, staff salaries, travel, polling, and digital operations. Campaign finance laws place limits on direct contributions, but political action committees, PACs, and especially super PACs can raise and spend unlimited amounts independently of the candidate. Critics argue that this system gives wealthy donors and interest groups outsized influence, while defenders maintain that it reflects free speech rights. Either way, fundraising success is often seen as a measure of a campaign's viability. Mobilizing voters. Winning an election depends on getting supporters to the polls. Campaigns invest heavily in voter mobilization, or GOTV, get out the vote. This includes grassroots efforts such as canvassing, phone banking, and rallies, as well as digital outreach through emails, texts, and social media platforms. In recent years, sophisticated data analytics have allowed campaigns to target specific demographics with tailored messages, making mobilization both more efficient and more controversial. Media and communication strategy. Media coverage shapes how voters see candidates. Traditional outlets like television, radio, and newspapers still matter, but debates and televised ads remain especially powerful moments in modern campaigns. Increasingly, however, social media platforms have become central. Candidates use Twitter, X, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram to bypass traditional media filters, speak directly to voters, and mobilize grassroots enthusiasm. While this offers opportunities for engagement, it also raises concerns about misinformation, echo chambers, and foreign interference. Negative campaigning attack ads and negative campaigning are now common features of U.S. elections. While many voters claim to dislike negativity, research shows it can be effective in shaping perceptions of opponents and depressing their support. Candidates walk a fine line. Too much negativity can backfire by alienating voters, but well-targeted criticisms often stick in the public mind more strongly than positive messages. Organization and professionalization. Finally, modern campaigns rely on large teams of strategists, consultants, pollsters, and volunteers. Campaign managers coordinate operations like generals in a political battlefield, balancing resources across states or districts and adjusting strategy based on polling and media dynamics. Technology, from big data analytics to AI-driven ad targeting, now plays a major role in this professionalized campaign world. Voter behavior. Why do people vote the way they do? Political scientists have developed models to explain the complex mix of psychology, identity, and rational calculation that shapes voter choices. These models highlight the main influences, but also reveal how elections are not decided by a single factor, but by a web of overlapping considerations. 1. Party identification. The strongest and most enduring predictor of voting behavior is party identification. Many voters form partisan loyalties early in life through family, community, or cultural influences, and these loyalties often persist for decades. Party ID functions like a lens through which people interpret political events, media, and candidates. Even when voters disagree with their party on individual issues, they often remain loyal out of habit, identity, or group solidarity. In polarized times, this loyalty becomes even stronger, shaping not just voting, but broader social identities. 2. Candidate-centered factors. While parties matter, individual candidates can also make a difference, especially in competitive elections. Personal characteristics such as charisma, trustworthiness, competence, or relatability can sway undecided or independent voters. Campaigns often highlight these qualities through debates, advertisements, and carefully managed public appearances. For example, a candidate's ability to connect emotionally with voters or to project strength during crises can tip the scales in close races. In some cases, negative impressions, scandals, gaffes, or perceived dishonesty can hurt a candidate more than their policies. 3. Issue voting. Another key model is issue voting. Voters often prioritize the issues they care about most, such as the economy, healthcare, immigration, or foreign policy. If a candidate's positions align with their views on these issues, voters are more likely to support them. Economic performance is especially powerful. When the economy is strong, incumbents tend to be rewarded, while downturns often lead to electoral losses. Increasingly, cultural issues like abortion, gun rights, or climate change also play decisive roles, with voters choosing candidates who reflect their values. Turnout and participation. Beyond how people vote is the equally important question of whether they vote. Compared to many advanced democracies, the United States has relatively low voter turnout. Several structural factors contribute. Registration requirements often place the burden on individuals rather than governments. Voter ID laws may prevent some eligible citizens from participating. Weekday elections can make it difficult for working-class voters to reach the polls. At the same time, reforms such as early voting, mail-in ballots, and same-day registration can significantly increase participation by lowering barriers. Campaigns also play a central role in mobilizing voters through outreach, reminders, and transportation efforts. The big-picture voter behavior is ultimately a mix of long-term attachments, party ID, short-term evaluations, candidates and issues, and structural factors, access and turnout rules. Understanding these dynamics helps explain both electoral outcomes and ongoing debates about how to make voting more accessible, fair, and representative in American democracy. Technology and modern campaigns. Technology has dramatically reshaped the way elections are fought and won. What began with television's power to shape public image has evolved into a digital landscape where information, money, and voter mobilization move faster than ever before. While these innovations have created opportunities for engagement, they also raise serious challenges for democratic health. Television and the image era. In the mid-20th century, television became the central medium of politics. The first televised presidential debate in 1960 between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon revealed how image could rival substance. Kennedy's calm, polished appearance contrasted with Nixon's nervous and unshaven look, shaping voter perceptions in a way radio listeners did not experience. From then on, campaign advertising, televised debates, and news coverage played decisive roles in defining candidate images and reaching mass audiences. The Internet Revolution. By the 1990s and early 2000s, the Internet opened new doors for campaigns. Candidates could share information directly on websites, fundraise online, and organize supporters more efficiently. Howard Dean's 2004 campaign demonstrated the potential of online grassroots fundraising, paving the way for Barack Obama's 2008 campaign, which set new records for digital organizing and small-dollar donations. Social media and micro-targeting today, platforms like Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and TikTok dominate campaign strategy. Social media allows candidates to bypass traditional media filters, communicate directly with voters, and tailor messages to specific groups through micro-targeting. Data analytics enable campaigns to identify likely supporters, send personalized ads, and mobilize turnout with unprecedented precision. Digital organizing has become essential, particularly for younger voters who consume most of their information online. Fundraising in the digital age. Technology has democratized fundraising. Instead of relying solely on large donors and fundraisers, campaigns can now collect millions of small contributions through platforms like ActBlue or WinRed. These tools not only expand financial resources, but also build a sense of ownership and activism among grassroots supporters. Challenges, misinformation, and interference. Alongside benefits come serious risks. Social media amplifies misinformation and conspiracy theories, spreading rapidly and often unchecked. Algorithms that prioritize engagement can worsen polarization by creating echo chambers where voters only hear viewpoints that reinforce their beliefs. Moreover, foreign actors have exploited these platforms to interfere in elections, as seen in 2016 when Russian-linked groups spread disinformation to influence voter attitudes. The new campaign battlefield. Modern campaigns are no longer fought only on the debate stage or in television ads. They unfold across multiple digital fronts simultaneously. A candidate's success depends not only on policy and personality, but also on their ability to harness technology for fundraising, communication, and mobilization, while also defending against the threats technology poses to truth and trust in democracy. Criticisms and challenges. While the American electoral system has strengths in ensuring regular and competitive elections, it also faces persistent criticisms. These challenges raise concerns about fairness, equality, and the health of democracy itself. Money in politics. Campaigns in the U.S. are extremely expensive, often costing billions of dollars in presidential election years. This reliance on money creates fears that wealthy individuals, corporations, and special interests have disproportionate influence over the political process. The rise of political action committees, PACs, and especially super PACs, fueled by the Citizens United versus FEC 2010 decision, has intensified debates about corruption and inequality. Critics argue that money buys access and policy outcomes, while defenders maintain that spending is a form of free speech. Either way, the constant need to fundraise consumes candidates' time and reshapes political priorities. Gerrymandering. The drawing of electoral district boundaries is another long-standing issue. Gerrymandering occurs when boundaries are manipulated to favor one party or group, often resulting in oddly shaped districts designed to dilute opponents' votes. This practice can entrench incumbents, reduce competition, and weaken the principle of fair representation. While both major parties engage in gerrymandering when in power, reforms such as independent redistricting commissions have been proposed, and in some states implemented, to make the process less partisan. Electoral College distortions. The Electoral College is a unique feature of American presidential elections, but it is also one of the most criticized. Because electoral votes are distributed unevenly across states, small states are overrepresented relative to population, and swing states receive outsized attention. Twice in recent history, 2000 and 2016, the Electoral College produced presidents who lost the national popular vote, fueling debates about its legitimacy. Critics argue it undermines majority rule, while defenders claim it protects federalism and ensures that less populous regions retain a voice. Voter suppression and access. Another highly contested issue is voter suppression. Allegations persist that certain laws or practices, such as strict voter ID requirements, purges of voter rolls, reductions in polling places, and limits on mail-in voting, disproportionately affect minority groups, the poor and younger voters. Supporters of such measures argue they are necessary to prevent fraud, though evidence of widespread fraud is minimal. Meanwhile, reforms like automatic voter registration, early voting, and expanded mail-in ballots are promoted as ways to make participation easier and more equitable. The bigger picture. Together, these challenges highlight the tension between democratic ideals and political realities in the United States. While the electoral system provides stability and citizen participation, persistent flaws fuel debates over reform. Whether addressing campaign finance, redistricting, the Electoral College, or voting access, these issues remain at the heart of American democracy's struggle to balance fairness, representation, and legitimacy. Nixon's debate in September 1960, Americans witnessed something entirely new. The first ever televised presidential debate. When John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon stepped onto that stage, they weren't just competing on ideas, they were competing on image. Nixon came into the debate at a disadvantage. Only weeks earlier, he had been hospitalized with an infection, and he hadn't yet regained his strength. He looked tired, thin, and pale. Refusing the advice to wear makeup, he appeared under the hot studio lights with a 5 o'clock shadow and a gray suit that seemed to fade into the background. Worse still, the lights made him sweat visibly. Kennedy, by contrast, looked confident and vigorous. He had spent the day resting and preparing, and his tan and dark suit helped him stand out sharply against the backdrop. On substance, Nixon held his ground. Many who listened on the radio thought he won. But television told a different story. Kennedy sat upright, spoke directly to the camera, and projected a calm, presidential demeanor. Nixon, shifting uncomfortably and wiping sweat from his brow, appeared less assured. In a political environment where appearance and confidence could matter as much as policy, Kennedy clearly had the upper hand. The impact was immediate. Polls after the debate showed Kennedy gaining momentum, overtaking Nixon in national support. For many undecided voters, Kennedy now looked like the future, while Nixon seemed like the past. Though Nixon performed better in later debates, the first impression stuck. Because the 1960 election was so close, Kennedy won the popular vote by less than 1 percentage point. That first debate may well have tipped the balance. Historians caution that no single event decides an election, but the Kennedy-Nixon debate is remembered as the moment television proved it could make or break a candidate. Kennedy won the White House, and Nixon was left with the bitter lesson that in the age of television, politics had become as much about how a candidate looked as about what he said. Conclusion. Campaigns and elections are the heartbeat of democracy. Messy, competitive, and imperfect, but essential. They provide legitimacy, accountability, and representation, while also reflecting the strengths and weaknesses of the American system. As we reflect on elections, ask yourself, should reforms be made to the Electoral College, campaign finance, or voting access? And how do we balance competition, fairness, and participation in a system designed over 2 centuries ago? Next time, in Chapter 16, we will turn to the bureaucracy, the often unseen machinery of government that implements the laws passed by elected leaders.